It creates private investment savings accounts, privately owned for every child at birth, seeded with $1,000 in the S&P 500. So parents, companies, philanthropists can add money. Anybody can add money to these accounts. You can't take the money out of the accounts, right? It just compounds in the S&P 500 until you're 18 years old. So we will spend the next year putting the program in place. It has to be launched under the terms of the legislation by July 4th, 2026, the 250th birthday of America. And basically, we got it expanded. So all kids under the age of 18, that's 65 million kids, are eligible. And I give a lot of credit to Senator Cruz, who fought to expand the pool of eligibility here. So what that means is that they can open up an account, but only children born after January 1, 2025 get the $1,000 from Treasury, right?
The others will have an account that someone else could put money in on their behalf.
And they can add money to. And there are a lot of advantages for their parents adding money, for companies adding money to it. So it makes a lot of sense. And for Michael and I think the key performance indicator here is if we're having this conversation a year from now, we want to have 50 or 60 million kids signed up. Now, of course, if your child is born after July 4th of 2026, then they're going to automatically get an account set up when they get their Social Security number, and they will automatically get the $1,000. But we have this one-time group, all kids under the age of 18. We're going to have a big campaign to get all those folks signed up over the course of the next year. And I guess for me, I was reflecting on this over the course of the last few days. And, at a time when you have an avowed socialist like Mamdani, winning the primary in New York, it seems like, the Invest America Act is really just the exact opposite, right? You're both trying to attack the problem of the wealth gap, but this is by getting everybody into the game of capitalism, making everybody actual owners in the upside of America's success, rather than resorting to price controls, attacking businesses and success, and creating really more dependency on government. So I think we're at this critical crossroads in America. And I think the Invest America Act comes at an important point in time. I think a lot of people think of it like a 529 account, Bill, but I think that dramatically underestimates what this is. This is a lifetime investment account, so they can compound over the course of your life. If you start with $1,000 and you add $750 per year. At 18, that's worth $50,000. At 30, that's worth $170,000. And at 50, it's worth $1 million, right? So it really is a platform for unlocking dramatic compounding and savings in the upside of capitalism from birth. And
I do think you'll see many companies provide matching contributions, and a number of companies have already said they're going to do that. And it'll be like a benefit, come work at our company and have a kid, and your child will get this. And it's just going to be super easy for anyone to add to those accounts. I think it's also a chance to teach every child about financial literacy and about capitalism and free markets, and look up in 15 or 18 years and you've got 70 million kids with these accounts. I also think you're going to have philanthropists. Susan and I will definitely be a part of that will say, hey, this is a really good way to get money directly to the next generation in a way that it's going to compound and have a difference in their life. Our foundation has studied this very carefully, and we believe it's worthy of a significant contribution. And Brad's been working, with the Treasury Department and others to set this up so that, any philanthropist would be able to say, hey, here's a zip code, here's a county, here's a state, here's a group of kids that I'd like to help. I don't know who they are exactly, but I want to help them. And I want to help their future. And I think you'll see a lot of philanthropists get very excited about this. I've had a discussion with a number of them, and this could be a major platform for philanthropy in our country.
And just to put a sharper lens on that, Michael, they might back every kid in a state or everyone in the nation on a year, or
adopt a state, adopt a series of zip codes. I think again, it'll be a platform for philanthropy.
Yeah. I think of it, Bill, in some ways like the Giving Pledge 2.0. I mean, we've had massive wealth creation in this country, like unprecedented wealth creation in this country, right? But one unique feature of America that I don't think there's any other civilization in history that you can point to, okay, that has this character, which is the super wealthy in America, by and large, want to give away the vast majority of their wealth during their lifetime or shortly after they die. I certainly know that Michael's in that group. Okay, think about this. In Europe, right, they invented generation skipping trusts. It was about coming up with legal mechanisms for creating dynastic wealth so as to not give any of your money away. Okay. And we have a culture in this country where people want to give away large sums of money. The challenge is the charitable infrastructure has not necessarily scaled to meet the needs of people who want to give away billions of dollars at a time. And I asked Michael and Susan the question over a year ago. I said, if you wanted to give away a lot of money in the state of Texas today, like how would you do it directly to kids? And there's not a good answer. Right? Because there's not a financial infrastructure in place that has a set of rules associated with it, where you could have somebody like the Treasury Department. We're going to have a pooled Invest America account at Treasury where Michael and Susan or other philanthropists could give money to this pooled account, and it would be dispersed to all these kids' accounts, subject to all the rules and regulations of use. So the kids can't take the money out, but they can see it compound. That simply does not exist today. It's impossible to do that at scale today. And at the long end of the curve, if you think about, my family as an example, we do a lot with the East Palo Alto School District, some of these low income school districts in the state of California, where I can just adopt that school and say, for every kid in that school, I'm going to give $1,000 a year to. So this unlocks, I think, massive creativity, Michael, around philanthropy. And that's what I mean. We know in Silicon Valley, if you build an open platform, 1 million applications can bloom. 1 million ideas can be built on top of this. I mean, we've heard from states that want to add $10,000 for every kid born in the state if they graduate from high school in the state. So I think we haven't even scratched the surface of the beautiful competition and the beautiful philanthropy and the long tail of philanthropy, churches and parents and friends that will be able to give to these accounts. And so our job is to make sure that we make it as frictionless as possible, that we work, and we're that's one of the core things that we're doing
and what
now.
You're describing, those accounts don't solely take money at the initiation. They can take money all along the way, which is how you could support a school or something like that.
Correct. So the way it works, Bill, is and all of this, I mean, Michael and I think, learned a lot about the act of legislation going through this, because, it's one thing to get it put in the reconciliation bill. It's one thing to get high level buy-in. But just in the last 2 weeks, we were negotiating the nitty gritty. I think this was 23 pages of tax, changes in the reconciliation bill associated with the Invest America Act. So families can give, or recipients can receive up to $5,000 a year from family, from friends, et cetera. Companies can give $2,500 a year per recipient, tax-free, so pre-tax. So Dell Corporation, for example, has raised their hand and said, we intend to give to the kids of our employees. So has Uber. So has NVIDIA, so has Oracle, so has Salesforce, so has T-Mobile, so has iHeartMedia. So, it's an incredible list that has already come together. And we're going to go to the Business Roundtable. We're going to go to the largest companies in America, and we're going to ask them all to do it. Now, we're not telling them the amount they need to give. All we're saying is give an amount that's appropriate to your company and to your employee base. I just heard from Tony yesterday at DoorDash. He retweeted something about this. Sam Altman, I heard from over the weekend, once he heard it was passed, retweeted something about this. So I think the business enthusiasm is going to be very big and substantial. But remember, the most powerful givers are moms and dads, grandparents, friends, birthdays, and bar mitzvahs. And all of those dollars ultimately don't really generally find a home for savings and compounding. And we're going to make it as easy as Venmoing in this money, Apple paying money in. And, one of the studies that we did that was really profound in partnership with the Milken Institute, they found a whole host of things. One was that low income cohorts tend to save at about the same rate as higher income cohorts if they have an account. The problem is that nobody in a low income cohort has a savings account or investment account. So I think you're going to see, a lot of contributions by all sorts of folks once we set this up. We also learned that once we do this, kids are more likely to graduate from high school and college, more likely to start a business, more likely to buy a home, less likely to be incarcerated. So I think the societal ROI of this will be really large over time.
And it sounds like you're going to try and find a way where if someone wanted to donate, Michael mentioned zip codes, but some other way that if people wanted to just target the low income, most needy, that there'll be a way to do that. Is that right?
This was a really important issue to Michael and to myself. And I'll just, give you a bit of a window into the weeds. We tried to get household income as one of the targeting mechanisms, and we weren't able to get bipartisan agreement on that. But we were able to get a proxy for that, which is you can target by zip codes. So you can target down to groups of 5,000 or more by zip code. And we think through that geo-targeting. So for example, Michael could target the Rio Grande Valley. I could target, East Oakland. So there are zip codes that you could target that I think certainly include a predominance of lower income households.
That's fantastic.
Hey, Bill, I know you've been involved in financial literacy and education for a long time. Tell us about the organization you're partnering with and, perhaps as a potential partnership for Invest America.
Yeah, my wife and I have been giving to an organization called Next Gen Personal Finance. There's a gentleman there named Tim Ranzetta who has just been pushing for financial literacy in high schools. So we can add a link in here. But from 2021 to 2025, in only a 4-year window, we've gone from 11 states to 29 states. And Texas just passed this very recently, a few weeks ago. And so the idea, which sounds obvious, it's actually quite shocking that it's not true, is just to add a semester of financial literacy to the high school curriculum. We send kids out to get jobs, and we haven't taught them, how credit cards might take advantage of them and how to build a monthly budget and how to use a checkbook and, how to plan. And so I think, these two things complement each other quite a bit, but that's another movement that it's nice to see gaining momentum simultaneously with this one.
Yeah, it's I talked to Tim. Texas just became, like you said, 29th state, I think, to require a semester of financial literacy education. And some people said, the Treasury Department, Invest America, they're not going to own the financial literacy. What again, I think when you create a platform of ownership, now it makes all of these financial literacy programs and organizations across the country just way more effective, right? Because when you're talking to a kid who actually, you say, open up your Invest America account on your phone, let's talk about how you got $12,000, $14,000 into that account. Let's look at how it's compounded. Let's talk about what it means to own the companies that are listed there, what it means to be a shareholder. I think you just have a much more engaged student, right? Because today, 95% of those students don't own anything. And they look at their parents, and their parents don't really own things. And so it's a lot harder to get motivated to learn about something when you don't think you're going to have the prospect of ownership. There are so many great organizations like Tim's out there. And I look forward to seeing how they take this platform and run with it to turbocharge their own efforts.
Brad, I know you wanted to mention the budget deficit and the funding for this program and put it in a little bit of perspective, just with all the talk and concern about how big the budget deficit is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've had a huge debate among our friend group about this, and some of my friends were even critical that this is part of the problem, if you will. So to break this down, um, the max cost of this is 3.7 billion a year. We have 3.7 million kids born every year. If you give them each $1,000, that's 3.7 billion. So just to kind of put that in context, 3.7 billion is about what we give to Afghanistan and Nigeria in the terms of foreign aid every year. So I think one of the things as a country we just have to ask is about priorities. Is it more important to give every kid in America a private investment account, a little seed from birth, and get them on the right track, or to give $3.5 billion to Afghanistan and Nigeria? And I think those are the type of choices we're going to be forced to make. And I'm not saying that the dollars going to Afghanistan, Nigeria are wasted, but we make these decisions every single day in our budget. And so for me, this is, that's one angle. The second angle is just as a percentage of our national revenue, this is 1/100th of 1% of our national revenue. So it's pretty inconsequential in terms of the overall budget. But the final point on it is, as you've heard me argue, according to the studies that were done on this will actually be revenue contributing 20 to 30 years out, because the taxes you have to pay when you exit the accounts on the capital gains will be more than what the government is contributing on an annual basis into the accounts. And so among the things we should be worried about when it comes to the budget, I don't think this is one of them. However, I would say unquestionably that I remain as concerned about the budget deficit as ever. And, I've been a supporter of a balanced budget amendment for a long time. I happen to think that this is something that is aligned with that, not at odds with that. Making every kid a capitalist from birth is going to better align us with the policies that allow the country to continue to grow. And I think growth is a critical element to making sure that we get our deficit to GDP back in a,